What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at AVAIYA is what the world needs.
Hello, AVAIYA family. I'm Andy Anderson. My partner Ike Allen and I are teachers, mentors, and the co-owners of AVAIYA University. AVAIYA is the creator of over 1,000 books, films, courses, teachings, and other supportive resources. Thank you, as always, for joining us. Our fellow teacher, Yasmin Kerkez, is with us today to talk about breaking free from codependent relationships in family. Yasmin is a life coach and speaker working in the areas of family estrangement and relationships. Together with her husband, Yasmin co-founded Family Support Resources, an organization helping transform the lives of all people living with family conflict and estrangement out of a passion to shine a light on family struggles that are rarely discussed and uplift and inspire those experiencing these challenges. Welcome to AVAIYA, Yasmin.
Thank you, Andy. It's so wonderful to be here. And truly, thank you for having me. I've followed your work for so long now. So it is a real honor to be a part of one of your events, because what you do is just absolutely wonderful and so needed.
Wow, it's so wonderful to have you. We always love to hear when people have known about us for a long time, and it's so great to meet you face to face. And I'm curious, I love that you're talking about codependency as it relates to families today, because that's so important and not talked about as often, I think, as like the romantic partnership codependency. So how did you become so passionate about helping in the area of codependency? Where did that all come from?
Definitely, Andy. Well, and I'd love to share, I think like all of us, it comes from my own personal experience. And this is something that I'm actually very passionate about because exactly that, my own personal experience with codependency. So I sadly lived with conflict in my family from early childhood, and it was something that I struggled with for years. And one of the things I suffered from mostly was exactly that, existing in a codependent relationship. And I've always known from when I was a little girl that one of my coping mechanisms as a child was to be a people pleaser and always seek approval and try to make everyone happy. So when conflict arose in my family, I tried to make things better. I tried to help my family member. I tried to fix things. I tried to give more of myself. I was always trying to keep the peace in my family between everyone. And I always believed that if I just tried harder, if I could just be what they wanted me to be, then I could fix things and things would be better. But like we know, you can't change people and you can't so easily fix things. So I spent close to a decade existing this way, with it only getting worse. And the result being that I lost more and more of who I was. I suffered great emotional trauma, and I lost a big part of my life because I stopped living for myself. And I truly didn't get back my life until I did the work to break free from that existence of living in a codependent relationship. But the thing is, there isn't that much focused help available to people experiencing this and existing codependency within the family. So when my husband and I started our company, Family Support Resources, it really was a true calling for me to create help in this much needed area of codependency, and also raise awareness for the reality that it's a very common thing to experience in family relationships.
Mm-hmm. Well, we're so grateful that you did come into this line of work to help people, because it is very common, and I think even less talked about than other kinds of codependent relationships. And why do you think it's so easy for us to fall into codependent relationships, specifically with a family member?
Well, and exactly what you just said, Andy, it's not something that's talked about in the open space, so people aren't aware of it. But there's some very powerful truths about family that make codependency very common. And firstly, from my own interest in science and my studies, on a scientific level, as a reproductive species, we are deeply connected to each other as family. So as children, we need to be nurtured and looked after, and we want to be loved. As parents, we want to protect our children. We want them to be safe. We also want to feel connected and loved to our children. And this is deeply ingrained in our genetic makeup and how we survive and develop in life. And on a social level, one of the truths is that as a family member, there is a deep desire to belong. And again, we want to be loved. We want to make each other happy. We want approval. And I'm not talking about having a lack of confidence, but the truth that as we go through life and as we grow and face challenges, we need that validation and we need nurturing and we need approval and encouragement and we need love. And this is all natural, it's instinctual, and it's deeply ingrained in our core being. And the family unit is the ideal environment to provide this. So we can work really, really hard to seek this in family if it's not given to us. And then there's what I believe as well, there's the influence from how family is portrayed in society. And we all know this. We're told that blood is thicker than water, that family life must be perfect, that we should never disrespect our parents or abandon our family, and that family can do no wrong. So all of these things, when we're faced with conflict in our family, our natural instinct is to try to fix the situation, to try to be better so that we can help our family member. We think that's what our role is, to be the best family member we can be and always provide help. And while that is very true and beautiful, and I believe it is needed, if we're a codependent character, we can lose ourselves in the process if we take this too far. So in a stable and healthy family, then it should be that all family members are doing this for each other. But in an unstable family environment where there's conflict, then it can come down to rest on one person or a few family members to always be the caregiver, or to be the healer, or the one that sacrifices their needs for others. And again, if you're a codependent type person, then the family environment is extremely dangerous for all those reasons. And also because we are dealing with family, there's also a greater desire to seek approval because we care for our family approval more than our co-worker or friends necessarily. So children want approval and protection from their parents, and so they'll continue to try even harder when their parents aren't giving it to them. And then we have parents that want love from their children and they want to protect them. So they'll keep trying even if their children develop problems or there's conflict in the family. And then we also have other family members, siblings or in-laws, that will continue to try to fix the relationship because they want or need that love and closeness in their family life. And again, like I said, this is all human nature and it's deeply ingrained in who we are and how the family unit has always existed. So all these reasons make it extremely easy to fall into codependent relationships in the family. And even without people being aware of it, they can be dangers, or if there is conflict in the family and you're a codependent type person, these are very real dangers and make it very easy to fall into a codependent existence.
Yeah, great explanation. And it's so true, right? Like a lot of times, even when we branch out from our family life and start dating people, then we think we're seeking the unconditional love of a partner, but really we're seeking the unconditional love of our dad or our mom, and all that stuff gets intertwined in how powerful that bond is, even if the bond was never there, right? It's just that seeking for it. So you mentioned dangers of this, right? Let's talk a little bit more about that. Like what are some common dangers of being in a codependent relationship with a family member? How does this influence our life? How does it affect us?
Exactly. And there again, going back to what I shared at the beginning, that I know from my personal experience, but also from helping so many people through my own coaching, that it can be absolutely devastating to exist this way in the family. Because like we know, at the heart of codependency is that you lose yourself and you put your needs, you put your life, you put your dreams, your emotions, your everything on hold because you are caring for and paying greater attention to someone else's needs. And it's a double-edged sword as well, because often the family member we're placing before ourselves is not changing, and our actions are not making things better for them or for ourselves. So then we can start to feel like the victim. We can feel abandoned, rejected, belittled, unworthy. We can feel deeply wounded. We can feel unloved. We can go back to childhood traumas, possibly, if they exist. So now we're in a place where we've lost ourselves. We've lost our identity. Our life is on hold because we're constantly putting someone else's needs and life before our own. And we are also deeply wounded that we're now existing with emotional trauma. And all of this can affect our physical health. We can become depressed. We can become addicts, whether that be through eating to comfort ourselves, right through to drinking, taking pain medication, anxiety medication, anything to numb the pain or to escape from this existence. And the real danger of this is that we're not living our best life. like we know, we can't show up as our best self. And we can't do this for ourselves or for anyone else, because we really are a shell of our former self. And life can well and truly be put on hold for years because we get trapped in this vicious cycle. And like I said before, with family, it's not easily recognized. So people really can get stuck in this place for years. And like we know, it really can affect our physical health. Again, going back to my own experience, I was completely lost in life and physically unwell as a result of my emotional instability. I was suffering from anxiety, poor digestion, poor health. I was under so much stress, and emotionally and physically, I was a mess. And I see this in so many people that, and we all know this, when we are emotionally distressed, we really can suffer physically as well. And the longer it went on, the more desperate I became to try and fix things. And this is again something that is very normal for codependent character. You start to think that maybe if I try harder, or what if I express myself differently? What if I give more of my time, or what if I give them more praise? Anything. The thought, if you could just make it better, or just be what they want you to be, then everything could be fixed. And this vicious cycle that keeps going and going really only leads to losing more and more and more of yourself. So it really is such a terrible place to exist. And the dangers that I wanted to mention were that you really truly lose yourself, but it starts to affect your physical health, not just your emotional health.
Yeah. So common to see people who have struggled with, I think autoimmune diseases often come up with people who are very codependent and so focused on, caring for others as well. And I love how you mentioned it's like, is your life on hold? It's such an interesting way of looking at it, because yes, it's like we're waiting for our life to begin or something, because so focused on others. And you kind of touched on this, Yasmin, but I'd love to go deeper, right? What are some common obstacles to healing from codependency in a family? Because sometimes this is something we can be trapped in for decades or years of our life.